Your reaction?
All right, well, first of all, Jerry shouldn't be the one breaking this news, obviously. I know you agree. It's
a hockey
just
injury.
Not the way things are typically done. Listen, if Dak being done for the year gives the Cowboys cover to pretend as if we would have been, injuries just bit us. We would have been fine. That will be a shame.
Yeah, it will be a shame.
Because, listen, I got the Cowboys wrong before the year. I thought they'd win the division. I think both of us thought they'd make the playoffs. I'm not being a smartass here. I don't remember if you had them in the playoffs. He doesn't either remember. He had them in the playoffs. But I don't think you were obviously more pessimistic on them than I was. But they looked like a bad football team before Dak got hurt, which means now that Dak is hurt, they might not win another game. Yeah. They will be favored in one game the rest of the year, home for the Giants on Thanksgiving, I think. I don't think right now they will be road favorites in Carolina in Week 15.
That's bonkers.
I think they will.
I don't know, man. Carolina's, you know what I mean?
Carolina's atrocious.
Well, Carolina,
they got to be favored against Carolina.
I don't know if they would be. I mean, Carolina played a more competent game Sunday morning. I know most people didn't watch it in Germany at 9 a.m. than the Cowboys have played in quite some time. And here's the situation the Cowboys now find themselves in. The rest of the year, I only think Jacksonville and maybe the Giants are easier outs for the opposition, which means they should end up with the top 5 pick, which means they should be able to have a true accounting for how bad this team actually is. Mm-hmm. And it should be a reality check that even if Dak were there, if you're 4-13 without your quarterback, you're probably not 13-4 with your quarterback, unless that quarterback's one of the greatest players in the history of the league, which Dak is not. So that's my overarching takeaway.
If they look at this as, like you said to start, we would have been fine but for the injuries, because it wasn't just Dak.
It was the
Micah
defense
went out
before.
and D-Law and all that. They were bad with Micah. Mm-hmm. What is their record with Micah? It's not good. Was it 1-3, something like that? It's not good. He was there for New Orleans. He was there for this weekend against Philly. So if they look at it that way, I'd be shocked if they look at it that way. But first, let me say this. And some of these are brothers I love. But those that went at Dak like he quit owe him an apology. His hamstring was ripped off the bone. Those that said Cooper Rush could go in and play just as well as Dak owe him an apology. And he wasn't playing well, but he was playing better than Cooper Rush. All right, so I'll say that. But to your point, Nick, Dak was having
Any other Green Bay receivers you want to just take a run at right now?
No, Green Bay receivers
Where's Randall Cobb?
that open their mouth.
Go
all
ahead.
right? But Dak this is, I'd say, the worst year of his career. And here are his numbers for this season compared not to last year or not to even some of his best years. His career stats, which include his mediocre seasons or early in his career when he didn't put up as big of numbers, he's still down from his career stats in everything. Every single thing he is down. And the reason why is because for his 9 years in the league, it has been obvious that Dak Prescott, as much as I've liked him, he is not a guy that can carry a team without a run game.
Correct.
There was no reason to believe he could ever do that without a run game. He's always had good running backs when he's played well. And that was so for them to go into this season thinking, with Rico Dowdle and an ancient Ezekiel Elliott, Dak's going to put us on his shoulders and carry us is ludicrous.
So 2022, they ran for 135 yards a game. It was 9th most. Then last year, 113 yards, middle of the pack. And this year, it's down to 84 yards. Only the Raiders run for fewer yards. So do you think it's as simple as like, if we establish a run game, Dak will be back, we have CD, and we're good money?
No. Listen, I think that the team is atrophied, and it's gotten older. They lost a lot of key players in free agency. I know we focus on Tony Pollard, but they lost multiple offensive linemen. Right. It wasn't just that. The other year that I was thinking you were going to say, you said the worst year of Dak's career, the year that was trending towards the worst year of his career was the year they traded for Amari Cooper. Where it started off terribly, they trade for Amari Cooper. And so where I thought where you went with it makes sense. Where I thought you were going to go for it is needs dynamic weapons all over the place. And so like just having CeeDee Lamb, not enough. And so, no, I think that the overarching story of this Cowboys season should be almost every single one of Jerry Jones's major decisions this offseason was the wrong one. From philosophical ones, how we're going to build the team, where we're going to focus in the draft, what we're going to do in free agency, to very specific ones. Do I bring back Mike McCarthy? Am I signing CeeDee Lamb and when? I know we're going to talk about Dak in a moment. I think they're kicking the can down the road on Micah will prove to have been a mistake. All those things. And so, to me, the real story about this Cowboys season is Jerry Jones has lost it. Not lost the football where as eccentric and maybe annoying or controversial or distractions he was, there was a period of time where despite all that, the Cowboys' football operations were actually run quite well. They did have more talent than most teams. They did draft better than most teams. They weren't, you know what I mean? They weren't getting run over in contract negotiations. That's no longer the case. They do contracts worse than most teams.
They did sign Zeke a few years ago.
And no team does it perfectly. But I'm saying it was not.
I think they've drafted well in the past.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think Jerry's been good since Jimmy Johnson left the Bills.
I'm
serious. He couldn't get along with Bill Parcells. Couldn't win anything with Bill Parcells. It was mediocre for a good run with Jason Garrett. Kept him. I mean, he's had good players because they have drafted well. I will give him that.
They've drafted well. They've gotten multiple Pro Bowls out of quarterbacks that were either undrafted or fourth-round picks. I think they had made savvy in-season moves like the Amari Cooper trade. I don't think it's fair to paper over the Jerry Jones entire tenure as the whole thing's been a disaster.
No.
But I think at this point, post Jimmy Johnson, Brew. I mean,
they haven't been. There's 3 teams that have a longer stretch of not getting to a conference championship than the Cowboys. 3 or 4. I mean, that's bad.
I understand that. The point that I'm trying to make is I don't think the Cowboys have been below league average in how they're run the last 20 years. I'm not saying they've been great, but at this point, I think you can argue they are one of the most poorly run teams in the league, and they do a lot of things purely in service of the owner/GM's ego, which is a problem.
That's true. All right, since signing a contract that made him the richest player in NFL history, Dak has thrown 8 touchdowns, won 3 games, and had a quarterback rating of 87, 24th in the league. It's right between Aaron Rodgers and Drake May. Brew, do you think it's fair to question if Dallas regrets giving Dak a huge deal? Well,
look, we always can say in hindsight, and this hindsight is really telling just because we have always felt like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone's felt like they're never going to be bad enough, at least, not for the foreseeable future, where they'll get a top pick. So there was two schools of thought. Was one, sign Dak because you could go 7 to 10 years, if not longer, without getting another franchise quarterback. And you never, there are a lot of teams out there that would love to have just a Dak Prescott quality quarterback. So that was an argument for signing him. And obviously the biggest problem they did was if you're going to sign him, do it last spring, spread out the money, and you can go get other players like a running back and things like that. But with the knowledge that we have now that they actually are bad enough where they're going to get a top pick, and Dak now, and I threw this out there last week, I think it was, I mean, he's injury prone now. Like his last 5 years, he's only played a full season twice. Like he missed 11 games, 5 games, and now this year it'll be 9 games. And he's going to be 31, maybe 32 next time he steps on the field.
So here's a graphic. Sorry, we had similar thinking. He's missed 26 games in the last since the 2020.
Yeah, I think, and again, this is with the benefit of hindsight, but yeah, because you guys know I've also thrown out, can you trade Dak? Is it possible to trade him? So yeah, I think at this point you rather not have him at that salary and try to start all over.
I mean, it's not the benefit of hindsight for me. I was saying it all offseason, that this was the one thing Jerry was doing that I agreed with, and then they folded at the last minute, or maybe they always planned to sign him, as you guys were saying, and so they didn't fold. They just executed their plan. Like, if the Cowboys had not signed Dak, they would actually be in a very exciting position right now.
Agreed.
And I reject the idea, by the way, that you have to bottom out to get the quarterback. I know we're going to talk about Caleb here in a moment, but Wilds is going to argue Bo Nix is better. He was drafted in the middle of the first round.
Mahomes is 10th.
Well,
Aaron Rodgers,
but it's more than the Mahomes being 10th. The Chiefs won their division and made the playoffs the year they drafted Mahomes. The Bills had made the playoffs the year they drafted Josh Allen. Like, you can move up and quarterbacks fall, and Lamar goes 32, and there's a light. It is obviously best to have first bite at the apple, your pick of quarterbacks, but as long as you're going to spend a first-round pick on your quarterback and willing potentially to pay something, you should have some viable options. And so, but particularly now where the Cowboys would be looking at a top 5 pick without trading up at all, and they would have really choose your own adventure on what you want to do. Do you want to build around a rookie quarterback, a CeeDee Lamb, so he's not out, you know what I mean, with no weapons.
He's only 25.
Right.
He's still young.
CeeDee? Absolutely.
Very young.
And Micah Parsons. Or do you want to have a bounty of draft capital by trading Micah Parsons for multiple first-round picks to build up an offense instantly around your rookie quarterback? I don't believe in trading star young players when you're trying to rebuild. I think you need some good players. Star older players I believe in trading. But my point is you would have a ton of exciting options. And the job would be more attractive. That's the other piece of it. I think now the Cowboys' job comes with, the head coaching job is what I'm saying, a glass ceiling. Where I think you're not going to get the most ambitious of coaching candidates. I think you're going to get people that are like, well, at least I know I'm not going to be in the quarterback desert. But I don't think many people are going to take over the Dallas Cowboys with this cap situation, with that quarterback you guys are talking about at that price point and being like, oh, that's my best chance to win a Super Bowl. And the best head coaching candidates are going to want to take jobs where they think they can win a Super Bowl. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's bad business in anything to pay the 10th best like he is the very best. And that's what the Cowboys did in this spot.
So here are the 6 highest paid quarterbacks. If you want to say like, Dak could have held off. Well, Trevor's also injured and out and on a losing team.
He's worse than Dak.
Burrow's playing great, but not winning. But Burrow, I don't think anyone questions Burrow. Jordan loves the future. Tua also was out, and they are losing teams.
Can I say something about that?
This is half the top 6 are just like,
but get injured. In a weird way, leave this up there. Because Trevor's been bad this year. Tua didn't look good before he got hurt. No. I thought has looked shaky since he came back. And Dak, you just said, was having his worst year. Also, those 3 guys, what those teams instantly have looked like without them is why people do this.
Tua.
The team, Tua's the Dolphins look impossible. We just saw the single worst offensive game the Jags have had in 3 years, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it without Trevor. I'm not trying to make this about Mac Jones, but we saw it. He was terrible. And the Cowboys, as bad as Dak was, they had 40 yards of offense with Cooper. So it's a weird thing. Right now, Tua, Lawrence, and Dak all look like overpays. But also the teams feel like, but without them, because we're not that well run and we didn't really plan properly, we are just instantly the worst team in the league without those guys.
Is that, I mean, we're really in the weeds of like the backup quarterback market, but isn't the reason why like Drew Lock's making like, how much is Drew Lock making?
$5 million?
A decent amount. I think he's making more than the Miami backup. But like Drew Lock is like the top tier second.
Well, the Cowboys have a very expensive backup. The problem is he's their 3rd string. So it's not, it's true. Trey Lance is expensive for a I think he's $4 million or something. He's your third string quarterback.
All right, final Cowboys news. Micah hopped on his podcast to clarify what sounded and what started as a compliment to Mike McCarthy, then went sideways at the end a little bit. Go ahead, bro.
Well, look, and I know he didn't say it in his podcast, but I think this is just an example of why I've said young players who haven't really accomplished anything yet, won championships, or even been veterans that, are learn things over the course of their career, should not have podcasts.
But
I know he didn't say it in a podcast, but still, when you talk like he does in a podcast, then you talk for 45 minutes straight in your podcast. You get used to just running off at the mouth. And that's what the Cowboys do. Somebody's always running off at the mouth, saying something that creates headlines and causes problems within the organization. It starts from Jerry. And because Jerry does it, everybody else feels like they can do it. It's just not Dak's personality. He doesn't really do it. Although he did say, I don't listen to that old guy. I mean, I've learned a long time ago not to listen to him. So I think when you're Micah's age, he's 25. He's not the most well-spoken guy. He doesn't understand how stuff can be taken yet. He doesn't understand out of context. Like, I'm sure what he said about McCarthy, I believe Micah.
100%.
I totally don't think he was trying to rip McCarthy. But he's still young and doesn't necessarily understand how stuff will be either misinterpreted or taken out of context or something like that.
Go ahead, Waz.
Two things. One, every team has 25-year-olds on the team, but it feels like organizations that are a little bit messy, all of a sudden it's like, well, he's 25, what do you want him to do? We see it with the Jets popping off on social media because, like you said, it's an organizational failure. Yeah. And I wish I pulled this clip, but I'll do something that, to be honest with you, doesn't really work that well, and that's describing a clip I saw on the internet. But there's a college team, and it's like it says the difference between a senior and a freshman. They're doing a dual interview. Have you seen this clip? Oh, it's great. So the reporter asked him, hey, what did you think about that penalty call? And the freshman says, oh, man, that was one of the worst calls in the world. And the senior looks over at the freshman. And he says, we're just trying to control what we can control. Like, we can't control the refs. And then the freshman goes, oh, yeah, we can. It's organizational. It comes from the top. Tom Brady's on the record of saying, and Mahomes is too, I'm just saying things. You don't have to It sounds stupid because we're part of the media and we want honesty and we want authenticity. But I also like savvy media skills.
All right, so I have 2 quick points. One is, I believe, Micah, that it wasn't intentional.
Totally.
But he did throw McCarthy under the bus. And Micah being mad at Rex Ryan because Rex Ryan applies for jobs, doesn't get them, and then kills the organization publicly, that's fair. No, I think Rex Ryan regularly makes a fool of himself, but that's the character he wants to play. That's fine. So I back Mike up on that. But if someone says to me, it's like, hey, there's worries that Brew's leaving the show, and I say, well, over my dead body. Wherever he goes, I want to go. I hope to work with him forever. That's a very different statement on our relationship than if someone says to me, hey, rumor is Wild's leaving the show. And I'm like, but my pay grade. No. I mean, those are 2 different messages, and he didn't give the message, I love Mike McCarthy, right. whether it's responsibility or not. Last thing on the podcast. I have a galaxy brain take because I don't think Micah should quit the podcast. And I also don't think guys should stick to sports. I think Micah Parsons should talk about anything and everything he wants on his podcast except football.
Great take.
I think it should be his take on basketball, his take on politics, his take on college football, his take everything. Micah, the world is your oyster on the podcast, just no NFL commentary.
It's a great take.
I think if he did that, it's no controversy. He gets the outlet. Bleacher Report's still happy about it. I'm interested in his NBA list. Micah, that's my advice to you. Keep the pod. Get rid of all the football takes. Give me your culinary opinions, whatever you want. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.